Ooh, girl. When both Joe Rogan and Candace Owens start side-eyeing the same story, you already know something in the water ain't clean. Because this time, the receipts look like riddles.
And the folks online are acting like detectives who ain't slept in 3 days. Every clip, every timeline, every quote, all of it's being re-examined like a case file that refuses to close.
Exactly. Charlie Kirk's death shook people. But what came after? Whew. Joe and Candace both started asking the same question. Why do the details not make sense?
And that's when the theories started multiplying faster than YouTube refreshes. Military planes, mixed up suspects, missing money, and a silence so loud it's starting to echo.
But before we even dive in, shout out to our newest subscriber, Ken Frito Scott. Baby, you picked the right day to join, cause this tea, it's brewed straight from the truth pot.
Let's decode what's really behind the official story, and why even the loudest voices in media are whispering that something's off.
Let me take you back to that moment. September 10th, 2025, Utah Valley University. Charlie Kirk, 31 years old, founder of Turning Point USA, walks into a student Q&A event and never walks out again.
Tragic. The headlines hit like lightning. Young conservative leader shot dead. Within 33 hours, police had a name, a mugshot, and a press conference. Everything wrapped up neater than a courtroom sitcom.
Exactly. Too neat. They said a 22-year-old named Tyler Robinson did it. Used an antique rifle, acted alone, case closed. But the thing is, the internet didn't buy it. Neither did Joe Rogan or Candace Owens.
And that's where this whole story lit up. Candace started doing what the mainstream wouldn't. Her own investigation. She said Charlie told 3 people the day before he died that he thought somebody was gonna kill him. 3. That's not rumor energy. That's, I feel the walls closing in energy.
And Joe Rogan? He looked at that so-called official version and said straight up, it don't add up. From the weapon to the timeline, nothing made sense.
Right, because according to police, Tyler somehow took apart a World War I rifle, stuffed the pieces into a backpack, climbed onto a roof, and reassembled it up there before firing a single shot. Girl, have you ever tried to fold a broom into a backpack?
Not unless it's made of Lego. Joe said the same thing. Like, be for real. Those old rifles are longer than half the influencers on TikTok.
Exactly. So when Joe started asking, how would that even work? People listened. His whole tone wasn't wild. It was logic. Where's the proof? Where's the footage? How did nobody see him?
And that's when the web started spinning. Because every time someone asked for receipts, new contradictions popped up.
Candace mentioned that Charlie had messaged friends the night before saying he was afraid. But those messages, allegedly, never got shown publicly. And that's when she dropped her second bomb, the mystery plane.
Whew, that part made the internet freeze. She pointed out that a military-linked aircraft flew low over the Utah Valley area right around the time of the incident. No one said what it was doing there, who sent it, or why.
And instead of answers, folks got silence. That's when the tone online shifted from shock to suspicion.
Because girl, when a tragedy happens, the public expects clarity, not mystery. But this case got murkier by the day. The accused kid's family said they didn't even believe he did it. The timeline didn't make sense. And then people started whispering about a possible audit Charlie was planning. Missing money, power struggles, all that.
So now you got grief, politics, and power all tangled together. That's when stories stop being just stories and start sounding like warnings.
Exactly. And the way both Joe and Candace framed it, they weren't claiming to know what happened. They were saying something doesn't line up and it deserves real investigation.
which honestly is the most logical take. You don't have to buy every theory to admit something's off.
But once that question hits, who benefits from the silence? Oh, baby, that's when the machine starts to shake.
And that's where our story turns. Because this wasn't just about a public figure's death anymore. It became about who controls the narrative when chaos breaks loose.
Exactly. The spark wasn't the tragedy itself. It was the pattern that followed. Speed, confusion, and unanswered questions.
And the moment both Joe and Candace started talking about it on air, it went from local case to national conversation.
That's how the spark caught fire, girl. But the deeper we look, the more this feels like part of something older, something that keeps repeating in every era.
Right. So let's trace how that spark spread through the system and what it revealed about the people behind the curtain.
Because sometimes the loudest noise isn't the explosion. It's the silence that follows it. You ever notice how some stories start small and then they start pulling at threads until the whole sweater unravels? That's what happened here. Once Candace dropped her findings, the internet turned into a digital detective board.
Girl, folks had screenshots, flight paths, timestamps, everything but the FBI badge. And the energy wasn't tinfoil hat, it was, hold up, something don't fit.
Exactly. Because the more people looked, the more inconsistencies they saw. The mystery plane, that was the big one. Candace said it was registered under a private aviation company that had previous military contracts, but no one wanted to claim it.
And when the people who usually can't wait to go on camera suddenly go silent, that's when you know somebody called for a timeout behind the scenes.
It wasn't just her either. Joe Rogan's comments went viral for a reason. He wasn't yelling, he wasn't preaching, he was analyzing. He broke down that antique rifle story like a man disassembling logic itself.
Right. Because Joe basically said, this ain't even physically possible. And once that clip started circulating, you could feel the collective pause online. People realizing they'd accepted an explanation that didn't even pass the common sense test.
That's when the chatter got louder. You had message boards, podcasts, even political channels all asking, if this was an open and shut case, why does it feel like a riddle?
And it wasn't just about Charlie Kirk anymore. This story started exposing something deeper. How fast institutions move to control a narrative when too many eyes are watching.
That's the pattern, right? The tragedy hits, the headline locks in, and anyone who asks questions gets labeled controversial.
Classic system playbook. Silence the nuance, speed up the blame. But here's the twist. Candace and Joe don't operate on the same team politically, yet they both smelled smoke.
Exactly. That's why people took it seriously. When voices from different lanes agree something feels wrong, it's not just outrage, it's instinct.
Now about that other layer, the money trail. Candace mentioned Charlie was planning a financial audit inside his own organization. Missing funds, major discrepancies. A week later, he's gone.
You can feel the tension in that, can't you? Because history loves that storyline. Money, betrayal, and a silenced truth teller.
But let's be clear. Starline don't deal in accusations. We deal in patterns. And this pattern, it ain't new. You've seen it in business, in politics, in entertainment. The moment someone says, let's follow the money, the lights start flickering.
Right. And when those lights go out, it's usually because somebody powerful don't want their fingerprints glowing in the dark.
The weirdest part? The alleged shooter's parents said they didn't even believe their son did it. Like, imagine your whole world collapsing overnight and your gut says, my child couldn't have done this.
That's heartbreaking, but also telling. And then the decoy man story added a layer straight out of a Netflix script. The same mysterious guy popping up at multiple tragic events.
Yeah, and whether that's coincidence or not, it shows how chaos blurs truth. Once multiple storylines collide, the truth starts feeling like background noise.
Exactly. That's why Joe said maybe that's the point. Confuse the public long enough and nobody knows what to believe.
And confusion, that's control's favorite currency.
This is where the web stops being about Charlie and starts being about how power protects itself.
Exactly. The pattern don't care if you're famous, political, or powerful. It only cares about silence. And once silence becomes the trend, truth starts looking like rebellion.
And that's what this story tapped into. Not just what happened, but why so many people feel like they're not supposed to ask.
Right. The internet doesn't trust institutions anymore. And every story like this widens that gap.
So, as the questions piled up, it stopped being a murder mystery. It became a mirror, showing us how easily facts get filtered, edited, and weaponized.
And the craziest part, the silence didn't calm people down. It made them louder.
Right. Because when answers disappear, curiosity becomes protest.
And that's when the web became unstoppable.
But if this web keeps growing, pulling in politics, power, and perception, then we gotta ask, what happens when the narrative fights back?
That's where it gets dangerous. Because once the system feels threatened, the response is never random.
Exactly. So let's look at what came next. How this story turned from confusion to confrontation. You ever notice how the louder people ask questions, the faster the world starts shushing them? That's exactly what happened once this story started spreading.
At first it was curiosity. Hey, something don't add up. Then came the backlash. Suddenly, asking for clarity became disrespecting the dead. Questioning the timeline became spreading conspiracy.
It's wild how fast the tone flipped. Candace went from raising awareness to causing trouble overnight. And Joe Rogan, a man who built his career asking tough questions, got hit with the same treatment, accused of stirring chaos just for noticing contradictions.
That's the consequence of modern media control, baby. The moment a story stops fitting the script, somebody gets labeled the villain.
And the irony? That's the exact thing Charlie Kirk was known for. Debating, questioning, challenging narratives. Yet now, the people doing that for him were being told to sit down and hush.
That's not how truth works. If you silence the people asking why, all you're left with are people pretending to know.
Exactly. And the timing made it even stranger. Candace started talking about missing money, a potential audit, and internal chaos at Turning Point USA, and boom, she got hit with waves of criticism like someone flipped a switch.
And it wasn't organic backlash either. It was synchronized. Multiple outlets suddenly running fact checks, influencers calling her delusional, and old clips resurfacing to discredit her character. That's PR warfare, not coincidence.
Meanwhile, Joe took the opposite route. Quiet, analytical. He didn't claim anything. He just asked questions. But even that made the establishment nervous, because Joe's audience, that's millions of people who think independently.
Exactly. You can't control that many minds with one press release. And when those millions start thinking for themselves, that's when truth becomes contagious.
And that's when the real consequences begin. Not just for the story, but for the system itself. See, this wasn't about a single tragedy anymore. It was about what happens when trust evaporates.
Right. Every unanswered question chips away at the public's belief that institutions play fair. You don't rebuild that by silencing people. You rebuild it by giving them answers.
But instead, we got confusion layered with censorship. Candace said people she spoke to off record were scared to come forward. That's a chilling phrase. Off record. It means people close to the truth don't feel safe saying it out loud.
And that's the scariest part of all this. Not the theories, but the fear itself. When people stop feeling safe to tell the truth, power already won half the battle.
And then came the silence from the top. No deeper investigation, no press follow-ups, no official statements beyond the first ones. Just a full stop.
Which left the public with two options: accept the story as is, or keep digging and risk being labeled crazy.
And you know what people chose? They kept digging, because that's what happens when curiosity meets censorship. It multiplies.
Exactly. People don't like being told what they can't ask. And the more the media tried to shame them out of it, the more determined they became.
And that's the power of stories like this. They remind folks that silence isn't closure. It's just a quieter kind of control.
So now, the consequence isn't just about Candace or Joe. It's about every voice that wonders, if they can twist one story this easily, how many others got rewritten too?
That's the question echoing through the algorithm, baby. And whether you believe the theories or not, the fallout is clear. Trust has left the building.
And when trust leaves, systems get nervous. They start scrambling, rebranding, rewriting. Because a population that questions is a population that's harder to control.
So while everyone argues over what's true, the real shift is happening underneath. A crack in the foundation of how stories get told in the first place.
Exactly. And once that crack shows, the pattern always repeats.
Which brings us to the heart of it all, the machine. Because what if this isn't about one tragedy or one person at all? What if it's about the system that feeds on confusion?
Girl, now we're getting to the part people pretend not to see.
Then let's peel back that layer and see how deep this machine really runs. You ever feel like you're watching the same movie just with different actors, different decades, same script?
Always. The names change, the tech gets shinier, but the pattern never retires. Power creates confusion. Confusion creates silence. And silence buys time.
Exactly. That's why stories like this feel familiar. Because whether it's politics, Hollywood, or Wall Street, there's always that moment when somebody says, wait, something don't add up. And suddenly they become the problem.
That's the machine, baby. The invisible PR department of the powerful. It don't just protect people. It protects systems of belief.
And that's the genius of it. Keep the public arguing over the details so nobody asks who's writing the script.
Right. Think about it. Candace and Joe didn't create the confusion. They exposed it. And in doing so, they showed just how fragile truth has become in the age of algorithms.
Because truth ain't what's real anymore. It's what trends. The more likes a version gets, the closer it becomes to fact.
And that's dangerous. Because once emotion replaces evidence, the crowd becomes the courtroom.
That's why so many people feel unanchored. They're not crazy, they're exhausted. Every time they think they found the truth, somebody edits it in real time.
Exactly. You blink and the narrative shifts. One week a person's a hero. Next week, they're trending villain. Meanwhile, the people pulling the strings never trend at all.
And that's what this story really exposes. Not just potential corruption, but the infrastructure of confusion itself.
Yep, a system that feeds the audience chaos, then sells them calm in the form of headlines.
So when Joe Rogan says, this don't make sense, or Candace asks, where's the missing piece? They're not just questioning a case. They're interrupting a business model.
And the machine hates interruptions because confusion is profitable. Clarity is not.
Whew. Say that again.
Confusion pays better than truth.
And that's the part nobody wants to face. Because once you realize how the game is played, every news cycle starts to feel like deja vu.
Exactly. They keep us emotionally exhausted, too tired to notice patterns, too busy arguing about tone to ask about timing.
It's not even about censorship anymore. It's about saturation. Flood the feed till truth drowns quietly in the middle.
And the only antidote? Stillness, observation, asking the same question twice.
That's why people keep tuning into these conversations, girl, because they're not looking for gossip. They're looking for grounding.
They want to know how the mess got made, not just who made it.
And that's the evolution of this moment. We're not in the gossip era anymore. We're in the power truth era, where entertainment and investigation finally shook hands.
Exactly. Because once the audience learns how to decode the pattern, the machine loses its magic trick.
And maybe that's why stories like Charlie's stick. They remind people that truth can't stay buried forever.
Yeah, no matter how many headlines try to concrete it over, something in the human spirit keeps digging.
That's what makes this more than a story. It's a warning. Every generation has its moment that didn't make sense. How we handle it decides what kind of history we inherit.
And history got a habit of repeating itself when folks stop paying attention.
So the bigger picture, it's not about Joe or Candace or even Charlie Kirk. It's about a society realizing that confusion is the new censorship and learning how to read between the algorithms.
Because when you learn to recognize the pattern, you stop being part of it.
And that right there is how truth survives. Quietly, patiently, but always.
Always.
Now let's bring it home. What happens next? After the noise, after the anger, when the spotlight moves on, but the questions don't.
That's where legacy begins, girl. Let's close it out.
Some stories don't end. They just fade into new questions. This one's gonna echo for a while. Not because of what's proven, but because of what still don't make sense.
Maybe that's the lesson here. Truth don't scream. It whispers. And the people who listen, they're the ones rewriting tomorrow's headlines.
So keep your eyes open, stay curious, and don't mistake silence for closure.
And as always, stay hydrated.